it's working. Good shit. Anyone here? Nopers. Nopies. Jeez, the YouTube algorithm's looking like ass today. Jesus Christ, there's nothing good on YouTube right now.
Anything you can naturally feel. And
I know he's not a medical doctor, but isn't it extremely disqualifying that a clinical psychologist doesn't know basic stuff about... Isn't it extremely disqualifying that a clinical psychologist doesn't know basic stuff about psychiatric medication? Maybe. I mean, the thing is, we don't really know everything that happened with Jordan Peterson. It sounds like there probably was some kind of addiction issue here, but like a lot of the stuff that...
Nah.
The shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz was not quite as bad as you probably thought. It is true that, in retaliation for the US and Israel strikes on Iran, the country's SEPA Navy broadcast the following message over VHF Marine radio.
From now on, all navigating through the Strait of Hormuz is forbidden. No ship in every type is not allowed to pass from the Strait of Hormuz till next notice.
To back up that declaration, the Iran Revolutionary Guard Corps attacked vessels that dared try to
Thanks, Trump.
Transit the waterway with missiles and drones, sending a clear message to others, grinding traffic to a halt. It's also true that 20% of the world's oil passed through this choke point up until the war. But global oil production in March 2026 actually only shrunk about 8%. Prices, however, spiked a massive 60%, 7.5 times more than the contraction in supply. This is perhaps counterintuitive, but how this happened and what happens next is explained by the full complexity of the global oil markets. The Gulf is undoubtedly the world's most important oil production region. It is both the greatest reserves and the lowest cost of production, making it no surprise that it quickly developed into one of the world's greatest concentrations of wealth. The smallest country on the waterway, Bahrain, no larger than the city of New York, is still the world's 35th largest oil producer, outputting about 200,000 barrels a day, even though its economy is fairly well diversified away from oil extraction. It focuses a good bit on refining oil from Saudi Arabia, as well as manufacturing, finance, and other sectors. Neighboring Qatar is similar. It's the next largest Gulf producer at 1.3 million barrels a day, though it too has diversified its economy by specializing in natural gas production. Its Ras Laffan industrial city is single-handedly responsible for 20% of the world's liquid natural gas supply. Then there's Kuwait, the world's 10th largest producer at 2.6 million barrels a day. Though in this case, there's little diversification. Oil completely dominates the small country's economy. These three nations, Bahrain, Qatar, and Kuwait, were put in a tricky, almost existential situation by the closure of the strait, as they're each 100% reliant on oil tankers transiting the waterway to export their product. It was absolutely devastating to their economies, but less so to the global economy, as they collectively represent just 16% of Gulf oil production. Their influence on global prices is rather minimal. The rest of the Gulf countries, though, are in a very different, more promising situation. The next largest producer, the United Arab Emirates, produces about 4.1 million barrels a day, more than the previous three combined, but crucially, it has a small coastline on the other side of the strait. Most Emirati production is in or near the Gulf, as that's where the oil physically is, but in 2008, it started building a pipeline. While official government statements tended to focus on the cost and time savings of exports bypassing the strait, the true purpose was hardly a secret. Iran had long threatened to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, and the UAE knew they could actually do it. It's only 20 miles wide, the shipping lanes are even smaller, and all they'd have to do is lay some mines or launch some rockets to keep ships from trying. Well, before the war, a substantial portion of the UAE's oil was loaded onto tankers at Das Island. A slim majority was sent via the pipeline and loaded at the port of Fujairah, meaning the country was already fairly resilient when this strategic threat came into reality. Iran itself, the world's 7th largest producer, has actually, perhaps counterintuitively, developed a very similar strategy. Prior to the war, its primary export point was Karg Island. Like with the UAE and most of its neighboring countries, the Iranian Gulf shoreline is fairly shallow, so this island, connecting to oil fields by pipeline, allows large tankers to dock and load to full capacity. Despite Iran's 4.2 million barrels a day of production, 90% was exported via this one terminal, an incredible concentration. But just as other Gulf countries were worried about Iran shutting down the Strait of Hormuz, so too was Iran for its foes, so it built its own pipeline to the other side of the strait. The port of Jask was rarely used in practice prior to the war, but it's believed it could handle about 15% of normal export flows with existing infrastructure, and more with some upgrades. Iraq, however, is in a slightly different situation. Its Gulf coastline is tiny. It uses offshore platforms to load tankers that carry the vast majority of its oil, but unlike the UAE and Iran, it has no other coastline beyond the strait. Instead, it has a pipeline to a port in Turkey, and on paper, this is hugely strategically significant, perhaps even more so than the UAE and Iran's pipelines. Not only does this bypass the Strait of Hormuz, but also the Suez Canal, which itself has been a spotty trade route in recent years due to attacks on ships by Houthis in Yemen. In practice, though, Iraq's pipeline is itself fickle thanks to the country's tenuous politics. It's routed through the ethnically distinct region of Kurdistan, which, while part of Iraq, has its own autonomous government and in many ways acts as a separate state. Kurdistan's government constantly quarrels with Baghdad over whether it has the right to export oil independently and uses the pipeline as leverage, meaning the political winds of the moment dictate whether this pipeline actually works in practice. Over recent years, it's predominantly been in a non-operative state, but this shifted in response to the Strait of Hormuz closure with an agreement made between Baghdad, Kurdistan, and Turkey a few weeks into the war. It's believed that, in time, this route could ramp up to 600,000 barrels a day, representing close to 15% of pre-war export totals. Lastly, there's Saudi Arabia, the Gulf's definitive oil production giant. It is the only Gulf country with a Red Sea coastline, and it's taken advantage of this to build a massively capable contingency plan. Its 750-mile, 1,200-kilometer east-west pipeline was built in response to the Iran-Iraq war in the 80s, and while Iran never closed the strait during this conflict, both it and its enemy attacked tankers in the Gulf, and Saudi Arabia believed a closure could be a natural evolution of this strategy. It's not entirely clear exactly how much capacity the country could divert via this route. While the pipeline itself can operate at as much as 5 million barrels a day and could potentially surge to 7 million a day by converting its parallel natural gas line to carry crude as well, analysts believe the bigger constraint is the tanker loading terminals at its terminus, the port of Yanbu, citing perhaps just 5 million barrels a day of capacity. Regardless, that's a tremendous amount of oil. So much so that it still maintains Saudi Arabia's spot as the world's third largest producer despite the closure of the strait. Collectively, these 4 pipelines provide considerable export capacity, dampening the impact of the strait's closure. And that's added to the fact that even as Iran blockaded the strait, a drip feed of tankers were getting through. So far, these had predominantly been those exporting Iranian oil or linked to Iranian allies, but regardless, considering oil is a global market, the supply these carry provides downward pressure on global oil prices. While the supply shock certainly has been bad, when you add these all together, it's potentially smaller than what the headlines might imply. So why does an 8% contraction in supply lead to a 60% jump in price? Well, there's a concept in economics called elasticity of demand. Effectively, it's the relationship between price and demand. For example, breakfast cereal is typically a fairly elastic product. Considering buying one particular brand is not necessary, it's just a preference, the price charged influences people's decision-making a good bit, at least on average. Academic research has shown its average elasticity of demand is -3, meaning a 10% increase in prices will lead to a 30% drop in demand. Consumers will just buy another brand or switch to something else for breakfast. There are plenty of substitutes. This also works in the inverse. If there's too much demand for a particular brand of cereal, more than can be manufactured, then the brand knows that they can raise prices 10% for every 30% drop in demand they want to induce, thereby allowing them to optimize revenue. This concept also applies to the oil market. In March, there was about an 8% contraction in supply, so prices rose to get rid of a corresponding amount of demand. The problem, though, is that oil is an incredibly inelastic product. Unlike breakfast cereal, there's really no immediate substitute for oil. Internal combustion vehicles just simply need oil to run. And the way vehicles are used is hard to change too. Among personal vehicles, for example, 3/4 of driving in the US is for non-discretionary journeys like commuting, buying groceries, dropping kids off at school, etc. And even among discretionary trips, heading out to eat, driving to the gym, going on a weekend road trip, people mostly won't let gas price increases dissuade them from doing what they want to do. Even if people learn to cut back on driving or switch to public transport, personal vehicles only account for about 1/4 of global oil use. The rest is commercial, and a trucking company certainly isn't going to stop trucking because oil prices are up. They'll charge more, which might reduce demand eventually, but not in the short term. Long-term elasticity of demand is different. People will eventually buy EVs, shorten their commute, and make other choices that reduce oil use. But in the short term, academic research looking at historical precedent suggests oil has an elasticity of demand of around -0.1. The opening weeks of the war in Iran largely, but don't entirely mesh with this. Its 8% contraction in supply and 60% price increase implies a -0.13 elasticity of demand, and while that's close to what theory suggests,
Generation Z. Depending on where you look, they're either the saviors of the planet or a group of TikTok degens dismantling everything we hold dear. I mean, just look at some of these headlines. Gen Z killed cereal, logos, sandwiches, traditional retail, and everyone's favorite dad dance, the Macarena. But the one thing the media and a ton of people are panicking about is the idea that Gen Z is destroying big booze. Chart after chart, headline after headline, tweet after tweet, all sounding the same alarm.
Not for me. Hell no.
The alcohol industry is dead, and Gen Z was caught holding the gun. Now, you guys know me. I love a good murder mystery, and while many view this as settled science, I am here to investigate, or at the very least, defend Gen Z's place in all of this, because you know what? Someone has to. I am so sick. Like, literally, I've been sick for 2 months. What is happening to me? But also, generally, I am so sick of people blaming a generation that graduated into a pandemic and can't afford to buy a house for every cultural downfall ever. Gen Z killed movie theaters. Gen Z killed skinny jeans. Guess what? Gen Z has about $3 to their name, and they're not exactly living in a world that was built for them. Obviously, Gen Z is drinking less. But you know who is also drinking less? Millennials, humans who smoke reefer, and a new wave of health-focused people. Blaming one generation barely scratches the surface of this monumental moment. And when you see the full picture, the Gen Z narrative starts to look a lot less an explanation and a lot more like a deflection. So that's what we're doing today. We're going to cover the history, the cultural forces at play, and then follow the money. And trust me, that last part is where things get really interesting. Let's start with the data. According to the most recent Gallup polling, only 54% of US adults say they currently drink alcohol. That is the lowest level ever recorded in nearly 90 years. 90 years. While consumption usually fluctuates in waves, we've never seen a nosedive quite like this. Additionally, 53% of Americans now say even moderate drinking is bad for you, a sentiment that is skyrocketing among women and young adults. That is a massive shift, but the biggest indicator of this change, the money. The global alcohol industry has reportedly shed an estimated $830 billion in market.
We need to get some more alcoholics. Get those numbers back up.
Value over the last 4 years. That is what gamers who work in finance would classify as a massive L. And if we look at specifics, things get even crazier. California's Napa and Sonoma valleys are seeing family-owned vineyards shut down, not because of wildfires or bad harvests, but because of a pure demand collapse. In 2024, California recorded its smallest wine grape harvest in nearly 2 decades, a staggering 23% drop in a single year. The grapes grew fine, it's just nobody wanted them. Industry experts estimate that between 100,000 and 400,000 tons of high-quality grapes were simply left to rot on the vine because growers couldn't find a single buyer. Craft beer tells a similar story. In 2024, U.S. craft brewers made about 23 million barrels, down 4% from the year before. The National Brewers Association reported over 500 brewery closures nationwide that same year. And the biggest names in the business are feeling it too. Diageo, the conglomerate behind Guinness, Johnnie Walker, and Smirnoff, has watched its stock steadily erode, recently cutting both its dividend and its sales guidance. LVMH reported a significant drop in profit for its wine and spirits division, and AB InBev, the world's largest beer company responsible for Budweiser, Corona, and Stella, is reporting consistent volume declines across its entire portfolio. So from family vineyards to breweries to global booze empires, volume is down and the money is disappearing. But that doesn't really tell us why, and definitely doesn't point to Gen Z being the single reason these companies are struggling, at least not yet. But one thing is overwhelmingly clear. Something changed. People are taking their health more seriously, which actually ties perfectly with today's sponsor, ZocDoc. So real talk for a second, I hate booking doctor's appointments. The usual process is miserable. Your searchers were fermenting whatever random sugars they could get their hands on. From Egyptians brewing beer to European monks making wine, generations of humans have always found a way to sell what many call liquid gold, which is why the alcohol industry earned one of the most coveted titles in business, recession-proof. Alcohol sailed through the Great Depression, Prohibition, 2 world wars, and the 2008 financial crisis without breaking a sweat. For years, the logic was, when times are good, people drink to celebrate. When times are bad, they drink to forget. And our youth? Well, despite the minimum drinking age being 21 in the US, underage drinking has typically been viewed as a cultural rite of passage. Just look at the iconic coming-of-age movies that captured the youth in recent memory. For a period, it seemed like every generation had their own drinking movie. Dazed and Confused, American Pie, Superbad, Project X, each one making a Friday night keg stand look like the most important thing a young person could do. The irony is that all of these movies feature underage drinking, which is, you know, illegal. But despite the taboo and the R ratings, these movies either crushed it at the box office or later became cult classics. If you were a teen in the 2010s like myself, you might remember how influential Project X was. This movie in particular really captured the youth as it actually inspired several real-life, out-of-control copycat parties. One person in the Netherlands, inspired by the movie, tried to throw their own Project X-style party, which involved thousands of people, rioting, property damage, and even the mayor of the town resigning because of how wild and uncontained the party got. I vividly remember sneaking into the movie theaters to see Project X with my friends back in the day because it was like so hyped up. I thought the movie was okay, but some people made it their whole personality for like 6 months. For a brief moment in American history, every suburban bro in a tank top thought he was one party away from becoming a legend. But this perfectly illustrates how influential glorifying things like binge drinking and partying is on people, especially our youth. Culture directly shapes behavior, and not just with kids. Alcohol has always had an equally powerful grip on adult culture too. There's happy hour after work, wine for book clubs, champagne at weddings, promotions, and retirements. Think about how deeply drinking is woven into the fabric of sports. You can't watch an NFL game without being bombarded by beer commercials. Some teams even feel like they're specifically designed to make you drink, like the Cleveland Browns. The point is, alcohol embedded itself into nearly every milestone and social occasion imaginable, which is exactly why for decades, betting against booze looked like one of the dumbest moves a person could make. So, what changed? Well, that's where things get complicated. We're seeing a worldwide shift in how people socialize and spend their money, and alcohol is more or less getting caught in the middle of all of it. But here's the problem. Some of these explanations people are pointing to really don't explain anything. Take, for example, the death of third places. If you've never heard of the term third place before, it's pretty simple. Your first place is your home, your second place is work or school, a third place is the spot in between. Historically, these places were pubs, clubs, bars, social centers, coffee shops, malls, or really anywhere you might spend your Friday night. Drinking is baked into many of these third places, and when the number of third places decline, drinking, in theory, should decline too. And look, that's not wrong, but it's not the best explanation either, because it's a classic chicken versus the egg situation. Did people start drinking less, which caused bars to close, or did bars close, which caused people to start drinking less? You can't use one to explain the other when they're moving together. The same problem shows up when people point to the cost of going out. Bars and restaurants run on razor-thin margins. When attendance drops, prices usually go up to survive. So did prices rise because fewer people were coming, or did fewer people come because prices got too high? Again, chicken versus the egg. This lack of nuance is also being applied to the conversation about Gen Z. There is one chart in particular that has been bouncing around social media for months. You've probably seen some version of it. Boomers, Gen X, and millennials each spending more than $20 billion a year on alcohol. And then Gen Z way off to the side at about $3 billion. On screen, it looks like a smoking gun. Exhibit A, in the case of Gen Z, killed the alcohol industry, but there's a huge problem with how this chart's being used. First, half of Gen Z is not even old enough to drink legally in the US. Of course, a generation where millions of people are still teenagers is not going to outspend boomers who have had 40 years of bar tabs under their belt. Second, the chart is not actually measuring drinking habits. It's measuring total spending for households where the head of the household is Gen Z. That is a tiny slice of the generation, mostly people in their late to mid 20s with much lower incomes than older generations. Comparing their total alcohol dollars to boomers is like making a chart of mortgage payments by age group and then acting shocked that 19-year-olds are slacking on home ownership. I bring all of this up to not say these things don't contribute, they obviously do, but none of them alone explain a $830 billion collapse. I don't know if these generalizations say more about the current state of journalism, or maybe just that people would rather have a simple answer than a true one. But to reduce the decline of a $1 trillion industry that survived 2 world wars and a prohibition to, oh, well, I guess the kids aren't drinking anymore is not just bad journalism, it's missing the actual story entirely. And that actual story is a lot more interesting. And it all starts in 2020. During the pandemic, everyone was trapped at home, and many started drinking. A lot. Quarantinis on Tuesdays was a thing, and for a time, alcohol sales actually spiked. People felt the need to either drink their sorrows or hop on Skype for a virtual happy hour. And yeah, that was cool for a little, but eventually that got old fast, like super fast. When everyone suddenly had the time to eat clean, maybe exercise, and actually pay attention to how their bodies felt, people realized, wow, I actually like feeling good. Around this same time, people also started being more open about their mental health, something that's been unfortunately stigmatized for decades. The pandemic opened a door that needed to be opened for a long time, and the proof is in the pudding. The global wellness industry has doubled in size since 2013, recently hitting a record $6.8 trillion. This includes gyms, supplements, skincare, spa treatments, and yes, therapy. People want to be healthy. That is a focus now more than ever. And guess what? Alcohol does not fit neatly into the wellness aesthetic. It wrecks your sleep, adds calories, spikes anxiety, and makes your smartwatch yell at you. This vibe shift gained even more traction in 2023 when the World Health Organization dropped a statement on alcohol consumption that went viral, stating that no amount of alcohol is actually safe for your health. It was a jarring contrast to the old "a glass of red wine every day is good for your heart" myth. Then in August 2025, Stanford Medicine basically torched whatever was left of that argument. Their researchers confirmed that even low levels of alcohol consumption are now clearly linked to an increased risk of at least 7 types of cancer. And that whole "a glass of red wine is good for your heart" thing, turns out that light drinkers tend to have healthier lifestyles across the board. So in those original observational studies, the wine was getting credit for things like diet and exercise. So yeah, it turns out that nightly glass of wine was not self-care, it was just wine. But beyond the pandemic and all the new research, this health-focused shift away from alcohol has been supercharged by celebrities, influencers, and social media in a way that we've never seen before. For example, Andrew Huberman hosts one of the largest podcasts in the world. Last time I checked, it was sitting around number 8, and he's done multiple episodes that received millions of views explaining the dangers of alcohol and the health benefits of reducing or even eliminating alcohol consumption. Then there's influencers like Sam Solik, who built one of the fastest growing fitness audiences on YouTube, and he's discussed a few times that alcohol has no place in your diet if fitness is your priority. When a man built like a refrigerated vending machine says not to drink, people listen. Now, you could argue that online voices like Huberman and Solik are niche, but we are seeing the same message bleed into mainstream celebrity culture. Billie Eilish, for example, has been vocal about the fact she doesn't drink or do drugs, famously telling Vogue that she's never been high. She's even written songs like Zanny that describe the dangers of substance use in young adults, famously saying she can't afford to love someone who isn't dying by mistake, which is a harsh yet beautiful line that cuts deep if you've ever been in love with somebody who is self-destructive. A lot of people know exactly what that feels like. I know I do.
It's not quite there. Anecdotally, experts have backed up this view. Even the CEO of Exxon has effectively said he thinks prices are lower than where they should be. But how can a market underreact? Well, this market is not perfect. It has subjective, fallible actors of incredible influence, otherwise known as commodity traders. This finance sector makes its money by betting on what oil prices will do in the future, and through that, are one of the largest artificial influences on how oil prices move today. Through a combination of physical oil purchases and financial instruments like futures contracts, they move the market ahead of the supply and demand induced moves. For example, if they believe supply will imminently contract and therefore prices will rise, they'll all rush to buy physical oil, store it for a moment, contracting short-term supply and raising prices. So of course, when done at scale, this becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where what commodity traders are really betting on, at least in the short term, is what other commodity traders will do. The effect this has on the market is that the day-to-day movements follow a mix of narrative and reality. If a large consensus of traders believe oil prices will rise, then oil prices will generally rise. If they believe they'll fall, they'll fall. And this helps explain this. In the opening days of the conflict in Iran,
Five teenagers are dropped off just outside the port of Antwerp. The port is as big as an entire city, and it never sleeps. Throughout the night, there are trucks rolling in and containers being shifted around. But the boys are here for a very different kind of job. Their mission is to get their hands on bags full of cocaine hidden somewhere in this maze of countless containers. And inside the maze, Belgian police are always on alert. One wrong move, and it's game over. This is the insane, brutal world of Europe's coke runners.
All work, no pleasure. I ain't here to make friends, big stepper. Hey, bad guy, Heath Ledger. Ready for whatever, I'll be front and center. Don't fly too close to the sun, your body chopped up by propellers. Stick around when me hold it down, look at what we found. Said this a marathon, not a sprint, let's go 100 miles. On the ground with me to the clouds, never coming down. That's the crown on me, wearing proud, fuck what they was talking about.
Hey, Jonas here with a brief interruption. I got some exciting news. Our documentary on China's secret highway is a finalist at the 18th Annual Shorty Awards. Now, with your vote, we have a chance to win the audience honor. You can support us by leaving your vote here before April 8. A link is in the description. We are grateful for the nomination and for every vote.
Europeans love cocaine. We already made a video about how the continent is hooked on coke, how the market for it keeps growing, how the substance works, and what it does to the people who use it. But what we didn't specifically talk about is how it gets here. How a product that's made thousands of kilometers away in the jungles of Latin America ends up in a nightclub bathroom in Berlin. Almost all of the world's cocaine is produced here in Colombia, Bolivia, or Peru. Often, it's brought from the jungle to other Latin American countries first. Powerful cartels control this part of trafficking. Mexican organizations like the Sinaloa Cartel and Cartel de Jalisco Nueva Generación, known as the CJNG, or Colombia's most powerful cartel, Clan del Golfo. In Brazil, the Primeiro Comando de Capital, or PCC, is a major player. Balkan traffickers are active here as well. And in Ecuador, the Albanian mafia has become extremely powerful. They all organize the cocaine's journey to Europe, but they don't operate
Albania and Ecuador. Okay.
in their own. Various criminal groups cooperate across production, logistics, and distribution. By the time the cocaine ends up in a container at a Brazilian port, it's already passed through 4 or 5 different hands. Cocaine routes are constantly shifting, but the most popular ones are by sea, usually hidden on container ships, or sometimes under them, or in the sophisticated narco subs we covered in this video. Mexican cartels smuggle cocaine from here to Mexico. From there, they ship it east, often to Spain. The Colombian Clan del Golfo either sends it directly from Colombia or to other transit countries in South America via speedboat. From there, it heads to Europe. The Albanian mafia sends the cocaine from here and here to Ecuador. From there, it travels on a container ship through the Panama Canal toward Europe. Sometimes, the drugs also take a detour through Africa. The Montenegrin Kavac and Shkaljari crime groups both maintain a strong presence in Brazil, often collaborating with the PCC. From here, they send cocaine on container ships to West Africa, often to Senegal or Gambia. There, they collaborate with the Italian Ndrangheta mafia. To hide their trail, the drugs are redistributed. Then they move on to Europe, usually via the Iberian Peninsula. But when you look at all the routes cocaine takes into Europe, 2 places stand out. First, the port of Rotterdam. But Europe's biggest gateway for cocaine is the port of Antwerp-Bruges. This is Johnny from Antwerp. He's 15 years old. Behind the wheel is a guy he doesn't really know. Actually, except for his friend sitting next to him, he doesn't know anyone in this van. But that doesn't matter, because Johnny stands to make a lot of money tonight. A few days ago, he and his buddy were approached by an older guy. He asked if they wanted to become Utalers, coke runners. The job sounds simple. Break into the port, get drugs out of a container, bring them out of the port, and earn a ton of money for it. Thousands of euros. It sounds awesome, even fun. But now it's dark and cold, and Johnny has no real idea what he's supposed to do. Too late to back out, though. 2 guys in the group lead the way. They've done all this before. So after a moment of hesitation, Johnny follows them and climbs over the fence. The port of Antwerp is gigantic. It stretches across an area of over 11,000 hectares. That's bigger than the center of Paris. In 2024, over 13 million containers were handled here. It's a simple calculation. A huge port with lots of cargo also means lots of cocaine.
We have a lot of ships entering the port of Antwerp, but also Rotterdam, Hamburg, Le Havre, which import legal goods from South America, from Africa, from far overseas.
We sat down with Anne Berger, a spokesperson for Belgium's federal police, for an exclusive interview.
And those criminal organizations, they abuse the legal ways of transporting goods to transport their illegal drugs as well. They always choose the path of the least resistance.
In 2024, Belgian customs seized 44 tons of cocaine in the port of Antwerp. But that's probably only a fraction of what moves through here.
There's estimations that about 10% of the cocaine that enters the ports in Europe is seized, but nobody's sure. There's a dark number, of course.
Have you ever wondered how we make these animations? Well, ask this guy.
Oh, hi, I'm Matthias, a motion designer at Fern. While I show you a bit of my workflow, let me quickly tell you about this video's sponsor, Udo. Before I started working at Fern, I ran a small clothing brand in Austria and
cargo avoids detection. They've reported
him for 1 year. I would have found Udo.
Groups go to extreme lengths to ensure their
I would have found Udo a little sooner.
Criminal groups go to extreme lengths to ensure their illegal cargo avoids detection. They've reportedly smuggled cocaine in sugar bags, with oranges and bananas, and in backpacks hidden among frozen vegetables. Or they smuggle a liquid form of the drug inside clothing, coal, or plastic. They hide it in cans of joint compound, inside fresh pineapples, even inside individual coffee beans. They might hide it under the floor, behind a wall, or in the engine compartments of refrigerated containers. But even if most cocaine likely slips through, it still sits here, in a container inside the vast port. And getting it out of there to sell it on the streets is a completely different challenge for organized crime. They're always playing a high-stakes cat-and-mouse game with the authorities. They have to stay inventive, constantly finding new approaches. And a few years ago, a new method emerged that completely changed the game.
Criminal organizations, they recruit people. We call them coke runners.
They're in. Johnny has never seen so many containers in his life. A sea of giant metal boxes stretches out in every direction. Hundreds, if not thousands of containers stacked so high it feels almost unreal. Row after row, wherever he looks. It's overwhelming. How can they find the exact container they're looking for? Luckily, one of the older guys has a phone and is in contact with the client. He sends over a photo that roughly shows the spot plus the coordinates. Time to go. Right turn here. They try to stay quiet, ducking into the shadows, listening for any unusual sounds. Johnny's pulse is racing. He can hear the heartbeat in his ears. After this, it's to the left. Then there should be a red container between blue and yellow ones on the bottom row. And bingo. Johnny and the others probably don't realize just how dangerous this all is. The port's authorities have implemented an array of security measures to combat the surge of coke runners.
About exact technologies, I'm not going to give you any information, but we work hard together with everybody. We have a lot of exchange of information.
The port is packed with security cameras. Police officers, customs agents, and thousands of workers are in the area every day. The port also relies on smart technology, smart cameras, sensors, and a network of 6 automated drones. They take off from these docking stations and do 18 flights a day. The drone
Ugh.
Drones are managed from here, the port's command and control center. It's unclear to what degree these drones aid in catching potential coke runners. Using the cameras inside the drones, port staff can zoom in and out of different areas in the port's infrastructure. Soon, they say, they'll also have autonomous drones, sending back images and data in real time. These drones would feed information straight into Apika, an AI assistant with a 3D interface.
Hello, I'm Apika, your virtual assistant monitoring all activities in the port of Antwerp-Bruges. Thanks to a digital network of drones, cameras and sensors inspired by the 5 human senses, I can tell what is happening in the port 24/7.
It can analyze the port's activities and acts as its digital nervous system. But first and foremost, the police are doing old-fashioned patrols.
The most effective method in catching coke runners is be present in port. That's what our maritime and river police does. They're present all the time. They check up on a lot of people. If there's any suspicious behavior, they know it most of the time.
Last year, they checked more than 10,000 people. In 2024, they caught almost 100 alleged coke runners. In 2025, it was nearly double that. Of course, it's unclear how many they didn't catch. And then there's another huge challenge: corruption.
It's very difficult to get drugs out of the port without having someone inside the port. So somebody needs to put a container in a certain location, somebody needs to communicate the location to other members of the criminal organization.
These insiders move containers so coke runners can access them quickly. For that kind of assistance, port workers can make over 100,000 euros. Preventing corruption is absolutely crucial for port security. If nobody was telling Johnny and the crew where to go, they'd never find their target container. They made it. Now they need to get in. They pull open the doors and see bananas. But right there, among the crates, exactly where they should be, bags full of cocaine. Johnny throws a bag over his shoulder. It's heavy. As the shoulder strap bites into his neck, he's already picturing a new phone, maybe even a car. Time to sneak back out. Shit! The port police have spotted them. 2 take off in this direction. The third runs this way. Not a smart decision. Doesn't he realize that he's running straight toward the water? Johnny and his friend just stand there, panicked, frozen. These boys are the bottom of the food chain. Catching them won't get you anywhere near the higher-ups or the cartel bosses. They don't usually reside in Belgium. But Anne Berger tells us she and her colleagues are hunting these individuals as well.
And we really try to trace up to the instigators of the criminal organization, the principals of the criminal organization. And there's a lot of them being brought to court.
Who's the biggest fish that you caught?
I won't give you any names, but if you Google it, you'll find them.
Well, okay, let's find out. There's Othman El Balouti, a cocaine kingpin linked to the so-called Mokro Mafia. In 2021, he ordered the transport of 11 tons of cocaine that were intercepted in Antwerp. In 2024, he received a 20-year prison sentence for it. In 2021, international law enforcement agencies cracked the encrypted messaging platform Sky ECC. They were able to read hundreds of millions of messages sent by criminals. As a result, a court in Belgium sentenced more than 100 criminals in a mass drug trafficking trial in 2024. And at the time of our reporting, the trial of alleged drug boss Floor Bressers is still ongoing. He's accused of co-running a network that shipped huge amounts of cocaine from South America to Europe. He allegedly made around 230 million euros from just 10 shipments. When Johnny and his friend were first approached, they might have thought it would be a quick and easy job without any consequences. Well, they're taken to the police station. Johnny is brought to an interrogation room. He's scared and completely overwhelmed.
And the first person they see is not their mother or their father or nobody they know, but it's just me, because I'm going to be there with them in order to help them, because as a minor, they can't be interrogated by the police without being in the presence of a lawyer. My name is Chantal van den Bos. I'm a lawyer and I often defend minors or adults concerning coke deals. So I think I represented more than 100 cases.
Just like our fictional Johnny, coke runners are often very young.
The youngest I saw was 13. We see a lot of young guys, mostly between 15 and 17 and a half, just when they're still minor, because it's an advantage.
Because when you're a minor, you can't go to jail. So teenagers like Johnny might think they won't face any consequences. That it's their chance to make a lot of money. For north of 10,000 euros. Johnny won't see any of the pay he was promised. Instead, he spends the night with a lawyer and the police. The officers start questioning him.
Poor Johnny, dude. I would do that. Well, federal agents out there, I would never do such a heinous act. Getting that illicit substance in the hands of these criminals. Anyways.
But Johnny doesn't really know who he was working for, and even if he did know, telling the cops wouldn't be a smart idea. Because if Johnny were to give up the person who recruited him, he'd be in serious danger.
They don't realize it, but once you're in that world, it's not that easy to get out of it. Of course, the organization wants to know whether they talked or what they said and what they were doing.
Chantal van den Bos always suggests her clients not tell officers anything. That way, they avoid being seen as snitches.
Because it's into the file, everyone can read it, and it's much too dangerous, so I suggest them to keep silent. I can't put my youngster in danger, I can't do that.
But whether they talk or stay quiet during questioning, underage coke runners face serious legal consequences.
So when you're a minor, you are arrested and then you have to appear the next day before the juvenile court. The juvenile judge can send you to the juvenile prison or to a detention.
They might have to stay there for weeks or even months, but it's different if you're over 18.
If you're an adult, you come into the prison. Afterwards, you get a sentence, and that's between 40 months, and you'll have to pay a fine of about 8,000 euros, if you're a first offender, of course.
In February 2025, 3 Dutchmen were arrested in the port of Antwerp for allegedly attempting to retrieve cocaine. The authorities didn't catch them in action. There was no cocaine on them, but they did have the typical tools of the trade with them. Now they face over 3 years in prison. Belgian authorities are taking a tough approach, hoping it will make an impact. They also want to crack down on the recruiters behind these operations.
There's new litigation now, telling that whoever uses minors in order to do something for them, the sentence they get is much higher because of the use of the minors.
The Netherlands has seemingly taken a page from the Belgian approach. In the past, first-time offenders usually just got community service or a suspended sentence. Coke runners had to pay a small fine of 90 to 100 euros for trespassing if they weren't caught red-handed. If they're caught inside the port without a valid reason today, they can also end up in prison. Even if coke runners manage to pull off a few jobs, there's often no way out. You don't just tell a criminal group, "Nah, I'm good," once you're done risking your freedom.
Once you do something for a criminal organization and you get money, it's very difficult to say no next time.
Because this isn't an exciting heist movie. It's work for a cartel, some of the most brutal, ruthless criminals on the planet. Over the past few years, violence in Antwerp has exploded. Drug gangs are fighting each other in the streets.
We have seen that there are a lot of bombs in Antwerp. Drug-related violence is huge here in Antwerp, and it's very dangerous.
In an anonymous letter, a Belgian judge even expresses concern that the country is turning into a narco state. But it's not just Belgium. In Europe's port cities, there are shootings, car bombings, kidnappings, torture chambers. So if these guys want you to do another coke runner job or move another container to the bottom row, they won't take no for an answer.
If you don't do what they want, the criminal organizations, they can also threaten your family. And a lot of people don't know that. They don't realize it until it's too late.
Many times I have the assumption that they really don't realize what's going on and what They have to expect what is going to happen to them. For me, that's like you didn't realize it, you didn't think about it in advance. You're just thinking you're recruited, you think about the money you're going to get. You don't think about the danger afterwards. You're not thinking about the troubles you're going to be in or what risks you are taking.
And the cartels couldn't care less if kids like Johnny end up in serious trouble.
The criminal organizations just send other people into the port.
Other young people will be recruited on the street and brought to the port. Business as usual. The cat and mouse game between cartels and the authorities shows no sign of slowing down. The cartels keep adapting. They're always finding new and creative ways to smuggle cocaine. One new method is the so-called Trojan container. Coke runners hide inside a container and are brought into the port from the mainland.
Those people have to stay inside of that container for sometimes a few days until they get a message from the criminal organization that a container with drugs has arrived from overseas. Then they have to get out of the container, try to find the container with the drugs, remove the drugs to another container or take it out themselves.
The port police are constantly trying to keep up, but they know this is a fight they can't fully win.
So we try to manage it. We try to be able to seize as much as possible, not only by coincidence, by scanning goods, but also by information that comes from inside the organizations and from intelligence all over the world, from abroad, from Belgium and so on. We also know we won't be able to eliminate drug trafficking to Europe. As long as there's a lot of money to earn with drug trafficking, criminal organizations will try to do it and try to bring the drugs into Europe.
Experts stress there's no single solution to drug trafficking. It requires multiple approaches at once: reducing demand, prevention, health initiatives, research, and law enforcement. For the time being, all parents and teachers can do is try to discourage teenagers from getting involved.
We have people who come afterwards and they say, I'm very happy I was caught at that time. It changed my life. I get another view now and I go back to school. I get an education, I get a degree, and I'm very happy that I'm not living that life as I used to be. Others, they come again and they say, we made another mistake and we're trying to make the best out of it. Every youngster we try to help, or every youngster we can help, it's one life or an environment that we're going to save, so it's very important. If I can change a little bit of their life, if I can just put one domino stone to change, that can make a huge difference. And even if it doesn't work, it's a never-ending story, but we have to invest in it. There's our youngsters, they're our future, so we have to invest in them. It's very important.
That was a great video. Sorry.
It's like Amazon for hard drugs.
The first time I was like, okay, it's not true. It's a scam.
Cocaine, heroin, MDMA.
You go on the website and it's very easy.
Paid for with credit cards and e-transfers.
They're positioning themselves as an ethical drug dealer.
Delivered to your door by Canada Post.
Did you try it that moment?
Yeah, on the spot.
It's cocaine.
A while ago, my producer Ryan and I started noticing ads popping up on Facebook and Instagram. These ads were offering pure cocaine, not subtle, not discreet, open advertising on the open web. We started digging, and for a lot of people, what we found is going to sound unbelievable. These are drugs that are highly addictive and highly illegal. For weeks, we spoke with nearly a dozen people who have been buying these drugs online. Eventually, we heard from one person who came forward offering to talk about their experience. We're about to meet our source, and he's agreed to meet us on two conditions. One, he doesn't want his face shown. Two, he doesn't want his voice heard. And that's because he's worried about what this all could mean for his family and for his job. Hey, thanks so much for coming in.
My relationship with this drug, love, hate. I had a dream about many things. The cocaine, in a certain way, destroyed this dream. One of the dreams was to become a cop.
It sounds like you say you lost that dream because of your relationship with cocaine. Would you say it was an addiction?
Yeah.
How often were you using?
Too much.
You got sober again?
Yeah, until I saw the ads on social media. So you have this ad, it looks professional. You go on the website and it's very easy. It's like on Amazon. You have many drugs and you have cocaine.
Could you believe your eyes and what you were seeing?
No, it was like a scam for me. I didn't believe it. I was like, it's unbelievable to see this on social media.
He says he stopped using cocaine a long time ago, but with so many ads popping up in his feed, old habits got the better of him. He ordered, and pretty soon he had a Canada Post tracking number. Days later, a message, his package had arrived. To his surprise, it worked.
I go to the mailbox, I open up the package, and I was like, okay, it's real. It's real stuff. It's real cocaine. I don't have to go on the road with some dealer who I don't really know.
Did you try it that moment?
Yeah, on the spot.
You've experienced cocaine many times before.
Yeah.
How did this compare, this particular cocaine?
When I tried the drug, I was like, okay, I don't know if it's 70, 80, 90%, but I know it's good stuff.
And according to the Canadian Centre for Substance Abuse and Addiction, very dangerous. They can lead to strokes, coma, and in some cases, death.
We've done a lot of stories, my producer Ryan and I, on street drugs.
Oh, not the legendary fentanyl cocaine. Oh no, the fent cane. Fuck.
And the fentanyl that's in it, and the fear that a lot of people have that their drugs will be tainted with fentanyl.
The fentanyl cocaine, Jesus, what's next? The fentanyl molly, Lord.
Is there any of that fear for you in that moment?
No, you take the chance.
We want to know for sure. Our source agrees to have his drugs tested, and that's how we end up in this drug testing center in Quebec. When we tell them how we got these drugs through a Facebook ad, they're not surprised.
We know about it. We've known about it for a while. So I thought that it was pretty much common knowledge.
People.
Is she the drug tester? Wait. Is that a nose ring right there? Or is that a shadow? I think it's a shadow. Okay, never mind.
So I thought that it was pretty much common knowledge.
People bring drugs here 3 days a week. Maud Chouanière is one of the people testing them.
We were surprised at first, but now it's becoming a normality. I mean, I wouldn't say half of what we test is on the clear web, but I'd say it's a good portion of the drugs we test.
For our source, this visit is a first.
We want to have like a fine powder.
This is a fentanyl strip. So for the fentanyl strip, we really don't need a lot of cocaine. Came back negative.
So now we can see.
Cocaine's not going to have fentanyl in it. Of course he tests for it, but it's not that common like people fucking think it is. The legendary fucking fentanyl cocaine. Jesus.
It's giving me like a match it's cocaine.
For a lot of the site users we spoke to, this feels safer than the alternative. Whether it's because they don't want to meet with street-level dealers, the fear of party drugs contaminated with fentanyl, or it feels like there's less of a chance of getting caught. We've seen hundreds of ads leading to dozens of websites all selling hard drugs. They're operating openly, but their digital infrastructure is anything but.
They use all the tools.
That's Ivan Angelovsky. He's part of CBC's Visual Investigations Unit. He's a data expert, and he tried to track down the location of the websites.
You can see that they've basically created a wall that open source researchers and journalists cannot penetrate.
These websites are sophisticated. They're hard to track. With web addresses that change from one day to the next, tracking the business is a huge effort.
What are they using to cloak their business operation and to hide what they're doing from authorities, but also from Google, from Facebook, from banks, from credit card providers.
High-level tools and coding on the back end, simplified client tracking in the front.
What surprised me the most was that these websites operate like regular internet businesses. Like every other internet startup, you get a discount if you bring new customer. They use analytics, tags, pixels. They watch their customers, basically their every move. If you put your email without doing the purchase, they would send you reminders, basically, hey, you have this in your cart.
You might be wondering how these ads end up on social media feeds anyway. Well, platforms like Facebook and Instagram make billions of dollars in profit from advertising. Ads that sell illegal goods are supposed to get banned. So we reached out to their parent company, Meta, for an on-camera interview. They refused. Instead, they sent us an email. A spokesperson told us Meta works with other agencies to stop these illegal ads and that those accounts get banned from running ads in the future.
The scale is absolutely massive as far as how many advertisements are being placed on these platforms on any given day.
That's Scott Roth. He's the CEO of LegitScript, a company that specializes in flagging illegal ads.
I think it's a constant fight because I think it's a game of whack-a-mole because anytime people have an opportunity to make money, they're going to find creative ways to go make money. And so it's something where I do think that it's one of those battles that's never going to be fully won. But it is definitely something that, with the right methods in place, we can try to at least take a bite out of it.
But even Canada Post is having trouble doing that. They also refused an in-person interview. Instead, they told us in an email. Postal inspectors who suspect illegal drugs do remove the parcels from the mail and turn them over to police. Last year, they removed 5,662 illegal items. They delivered 240 million parcels. In the end, our source decided to destroy the drugs that he tested. CBC ensured the drugs were properly destroyed.
I felt so good when the cocaine was destroyed because for me, it's what I had to do to really liberate myself from this drug.
But temptation is just a click away.
Since I clicked on this link for the first time and I bought the drug on the website, every time since that moment, I go on Facebook, Instagram, I see the ads, many ads. If you have addiction and you go on social media and you see this every day and many times every day, it'll keep you in this addiction.
We spoke to half a dozen police officers on background for this story. None of them had ever heard of these sites operating so openly on the clear web. Ultimately, they told us any investigation would be handled by the RCMP, but after weeks of repeated requests for an interview, the RCMP refused, and ultimately they sent us an email. Their email says they're fighting online sales of illegal drugs, and they don't talk about ongoing investigations because they say it could compromise their efforts. What is clear is this: the system that is supposed to...
How long did it take you to kind of be happy with the
Ooh, acid, good shit.
formula that you had?
Coquiana. Probably, I don't know what the fuck that is. Meth?
It was a lot of trial and error, I'm not gonna lie, and you gotta be careful when you're dealing with fentanyl because you don't want to kill.
No, I was just fent.
anybody.
I think there's a funny contrast between injecting fentanyl and that Hello Kitty dancing. That Hello Kitty
Jesus.
dancing.
Trink is growing here in Florida. Reports show that up to 80% of recent fentanyl seizures contain xylazine.
Wow. I thought that shit was stuck in like Kensington. Now it's showing up in Miami. What makes xylazine such a good drug when fentanyl and nitazines exist?
A sedative given to animals during surgery. I want to understand this rise in demand, so I'm meeting up with a dealer named Tattoo. He's invited us to tag along for the day while he makes his drops.
Trank money. I could buy this off Trank money.
Is it really that strong that I need to put this on?
Retard alert.
I mean, fat is really fine.
Yeah.
If you're gonna be close to me, yeah. I mean, not them, but
Okay.
see how fine it looks. So, because it's like it's chemicals.
Mm-hmm. Is this like a thing where I should be like breathing out of my mouth or something?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't really like to do the small things with the xylazine because it's hard to find people. You gotta really go out there and find people that are into this type of thing, you know?
Yeah.
It's all about supply and demand, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's getting more popular.
Yeah, when did you first start noticing like the demand for it was just like kind of jumping?
At least for me, like about 6-7 months. For me, I'm fairly new to it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
More people are asking for it more. I'm assuming because of the length of the high, you know?
When you're bagging like this, do you have drops after this? Or are you just like waiting for people to come by later?
What people want is heroin, not the fentanyl or the xylazine. R.I.P. to that.
Yeah, if I bag it up, it's because I have somebody already interested in some.
Did you use Pokemon cards?
It's Poliwhirl.
Yeah, actually I do. At noon, I start checking my phones. I don't get like up maybe till like 2 o'clock. Then I start seeing I don't get.
This dude loves Bass Pro Shops. Look, 1, 2, 3. Is there a fourth one? Oh, I got at least 3 of them.
Yeah, like up maybe till like 2 o'clock. Then I start seeing my orders, you know, and then I, you know, bag up. This would be like Fent, like you would sell it like Fent. Like a point would be, over here a point is $20 because we're in South, you know, we're in the South.
And then this is a half gram right there?
This is a half a gram, yeah.
Okay, are you selling grams of it too, or?
I'd rather not deal with the 20, you know, I'd rather deal half a grams and up, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if a point is $20, I'll sell somebody a half a gram. I'll tell them, give me, you know, $60 for a half a gram. They're gonna save money. You understand what I'm saying? The gram would be like 120, 150, depending on the strength of it. You know.
Probably different crowds are hitting you up at different times, right? So who are like the early guys who are trying to get this right now?
The early guys would be the people going into work that are like sick, you know, like dope sick. Because it has the fentanyl definitely makes you dope sick, you know, so they can't go to work sick, so they do the stuff early. Ravers would be like more in the nighttime.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's just so crazy that like ravers are going for this.
That's what I took because of the similarity of the ketamine. I have no, it's a new crowd, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's so much gnarlier than K though.
I don't like to get too close to it, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I put it in a bag and then I seal it like this. You know, I vacuum seal it so it doesn't really get out.
Yeah, who's the client who's getting that big bag today?
One of my boys, he's gonna re-up.
Do you find that the guys who are buying it for you, who are then kind of also dealing it, are they using it too, or does everybody kind of try to keep away from that stuff if they can?
No, I've never seen anybody that deals this and also uses it. I haven't run into somebody yet.
They just know how bad it can be?
Yeah.
When we were driving here, we saw cops everywhere. Is it kind of freaky driving around with all this in your car?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely have to take something for the anxiety when I have this type of things in my car. Yes, I definitely.
as he takes Xanax?
I usually drive with a bottle of Jameson. You know what I'm saying? This is like the strip right here where like the girls come and they come and trick right here at this little intersection right here. This house just got raided last week. That's the Mexicans. They sell weed right there. That's some people waiting for dope right there. These are our child though. You see where they got the doors open like that? That means that they're open. You feel me? This is 3rd Street right here. They're right there. That's where they sell boy and fat. Right there. The other one's Molly. All these shits are traps, like literally, like, all these shits. Yo. Yeah, what's good? Chillin', this bitch about to pull up and give me that bread right now. So, if you wanna come through, I'm here at my mom's crib. You still wanted those things too, right? Yeah. 5? Give me, I wanted the 4 for 60, 15, right? Alright, yeah.
So where are we heading right now?
Right now, we're going to drop off some trank and some bud.
And who's the guy who ordered this?
It's actually a girl.
What is that, a half?
This is a half ounce of weed and a half a gram of xylazine.
And is this for her, or is she just acting as a middleman? Is she selling this?
Well, the weed is for her, but I feel like by her middlemaning this is paying for her weed.
Okay.
I'll be back, guys.
Seeing how Tattoo is drinking, smoking, snorting coke, and taking Xanax throughout the entire car ride, I'm actually impressed we were able to make it to all his drops. Like, how much are you pulling in? Like, and if you don't want to use like concrete, just some soft figures right here.
In between $6,000 and $8,000 a week.
You're putting the windows up. What is there, a cop?
Yeah, I see police lights. You see on this, you see on that F-150?
Oh yeah, the blue.
It might not be police lights, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. I wish I could fucking introduce you guys to my fucking cop friends. That shit wouldn't be too good, though.
What, are they big clients of yours?
They actually are clients, and they actually sell to their own client.
So it's like cops stealing to other cops at the precinct? Through a contact down here, we've connected with 2 trank users who've invited us to the apartment complex that they're squatting at. Interestingly enough, the complex is in a neighborhood known as Overtown. It's full of bandos, abandoned houses. We saw a lot of aid workers and even nuns distributing meals. So these 2 people have invited us to kind of chat with us about their experience with trank and kind of explain when it got so prevalent on the streets. How long have you been using opiates and all of this stuff?
The opiates I've been using now for like 12 years, like 11 years. Yeah. I went to Florida State for school, and I did a lot of different drugs up there, and then I met a guy that introduced me to Roxy's, like the 30 milligram oxycodone pills, the little blue ones. And I didn't know anything about them. I didn't know that like you could get physically dependent on them. Like I didn't know what oxycodone was, honestly. Like I just had never heard about it or like known people to abuse it. And I started withdrawing, without knowing I was withdrawing. So that's how that started. And then I just became addicted to opiates, and then eventually like that pill crisis happened, where they shut down all those pill mills that were in South Florida, and you like couldn't get them anymore. So that's how I started shooting heroin, and then it was just whatever was next. I actually started working because my bachelor's is in criminology, ironically enough. So I started working for like the public defender, the public defender here in Miami, and after the internship, they hired me, and I worked for them. I worked for felony drug court, and I was already getting high on the painkillers and eventually like on the heroin. But nobody knew, that I worked with, Like they didn't have any idea. And then the first time I was ever arrested, it was a drug-related case. You know, it was like several possession charges. So I showed up as an inmate, like in Orange, in drug court, like where I worked, you know, and was fired. So that's how that happened.
Can you kind of talk to me about, you know, when tranks first started showing up on the scene?
I thought a friend of mine just had really good fentanyl, you know, like, or whatever, because I would get it and then I would get like really high. Eventually, like I started like to get it from other places and it wasn't working, you know, so that's not good, you know, because now I guess I'm like hooked on trank.
How does trank make you feel when you're on it?
Not so much sleepy, you know, but like kind of if you were like on anesthesia.
From different things that I've seen and different people that I've talked to, I've seen that kind of the injection sites can get infected.
Yeah, like right now, like these sores and stuff, like all these scars, like these scars, you know, that's all like trank related.
How often are you using trank?
Whenever it's in the fentanyl I use, you know, which I use like maybe 4 or 5 times a day.
You live here with your girlfriend right now?
Yeah.
How did you two meet?
We met out here.
Was she on the streets too?
Yeah. She was living in a tent.
Do you or your girlfriend have a job right now?
No.
So how are you guys providing for yourselves?
I will like go to stores and they call it boosting, you know, and just kind of like steal stuff and then sell it, you know, and then she does what she needs to do, you know, to get money. Usually, like, our cleaning lady comes by, but, yeah. Show him your dancing Hello Kitty. For real.
I call her a stripper.
I think there's a funny contrast between injecting fentanyl and that Hello Kitty dancing.
If you could snap your fingers and things could be instantly the way you wanted them, like what would that look like?
I don't know. I have no idea, really. Easier. Yeah.
Through one of our contacts, I'm meeting with CG, a woman in Overtown who's currently in treatment. She's agreed to tell me what her experience with trank was like on the streets. How long were you on the streets?
5 years.
How did you find yourself there?
I started doing heroin when I was 28. I was staying with my parents and my mom was dying from dementia. She didn't know who anybody was. She didn't know who I was or anything. And then one day paramedics had to come and take her to the hospital. And as they're taking her away, she looks at me and she reaches up to me and she says, "I don't want to lose you to needles." And it wasn't like that. I just decided to get clean that day, and I was going to get clean week, like I got clean that day. And I had to pull the plug on her on Christmas. She died on New Year's. So after she died, my stepdad just closed the apartment and he left. So I didn't have that resource and I was just kind of couch hopping. And then I found out that my best friend from high school of 16 years, she shot herself in the head. And that just did me in. I had a boyfriend where before I would go to work, he would shoot me up because I couldn't do it myself. And then he snuck me a speedball without me knowing, which is my downfall. And I just ended up in Overtown.
How do you adapt to that new life?
The drugs were very numbing. You know, being homeless is a new level of loneliness. When I got clean, I got released from the hospital. I had one more day left on the streets sober. And that was like the first day that I was scared, which was the only day that I spent on the street sober.
What drugs made it easier?
I did fentanyl. I would speedball. I really did not like trank because you're passing out, like right on the spot. Like you don't even realize you're passing out. It's not like all of a sudden you're nodding and then you're nodding. No, it's like you're out. And you can't, Narcan doesn't help like with an OD with trank. So it's really dangerous if you OD.
Did you know a lot of people who started getting hooked on it?
Well, I mean, it was kind of like our only option most of the time. Like they were putting it in a lot of bags. Like you have a bag that has like maybe 8% fentanyl and the rest trank. You're sick in 2 hours. So I'm like constantly having to hustle just to get like a shot in 2 hours, another shot. And it's just like exhausting.
What is the process with getting clean been like?
But I mean, I'm going to have a baby. So that's really what is like, that's my main reason to be clean. So that I don't even think about it because I'm just thinking about caring for the child that I'm going to have. There is bacteria on my lung and a septic emboli, which could lead to a stroke. The doctor that I had, when he saw me, he saw somebody that deserved a chance. He saw a person. And I want to like go up to him and show him that I'm grateful to him by being clean today.
CG was able to kick her addiction despite being surrounded by people who were eager to feed it. So I'm linking back up with Tattoo to get his final thoughts on this, seeing as not too long ago, he was also fighting a fentanyl addiction. When does the foot traffic usually start coming in tonight?
I mean, right now, everybody wants me to deliver, like, so this is what I call a party pack.
Okay, so it's a little bit of crystal, a little trank, some cocaine, and some weed. Is this like a popular option?
No, this is a weird, it's a weird request, but I don't ask them too many questions. They're probably just hanging out at the crib, you know, they want to just get fucked up. These are two imported, we have some gel tabs right here. Both of these are imported from Canada.
This feels like a light stash, like where's the rest?
It looks like a light stash. This shit will send you to prison for a very long time. All this right here, they'll give me like at least like 10, 15 years for all this shit.
Damn.
Especially this. This is the most of it, you know?
I mean, what's your record?
It's pretty bad. I went to prison twice already.
Who are the people who are like specifically coming for like trank though? Like what's that out of your clients? Who are those guys?
Mostly it's like servers, people that are up on their feet all day long. I guess the mix of the fentanyl is like a painkiller type of thing.
Have you seen kind of clients go from this to fentanyl to trank?
Yes, yeah, I have.
I'm looking at this now, and the yellow comes from the fent.
Right, from the mixing of the two chemicals.
Are people coming to you specifically just to get trank without fent too?
Yeah, more of the ravers, yeah.
How long did it take you to kind of be happy with the formula that you have?
It was a lot of trial and error, I'm not gonna lie, and you gotta be careful when you're dealing with fentanyl because you don't want to kill anybody. He's high, nodding.
How soon from kind of like
seconds? Yeah, the other guy's dead. I don't want to show the other guy. The other guy overdosed, so I really don't want to show him.
I'm sure a lot of different dealers don't care if their clients OD, but it seems like you do.
Unfortunately, some of my friends use it, you know what I'm saying? So I wouldn't want to sell my friends a bad batch and have them OD, you know what I'm saying?
Is that hard as a dealer where you're like,
yeah,
I don't want to sell you this because you know how bad it is, but...
It is, but then again, I was hooked on heroin and fentanyl for 10 years, and I got off of it, and I could be around, you know what I'm saying, and choose not to do it, you know what I'm saying?
So you're seeing all of these other people struggle, and they're coming in and like getting this from you. Like, do you have survivor's guilt from the fact that you were able to kick it?
Yeah, I feel guilty because I'm giving it to my friends, I feel guilty, like if I'm an enabler. Somewhat, you know what I'm saying? But like I said, they have a choice, In this game, you can't have no type of remorse, you know what I'm saying?
Was that a hard lesson for you to learn?
Yeah, definitely. But when I was in prison and everybody turned their backs on me, that's what made me like this, you know what I'm saying? When I needed everybody and they didn't help me out, that's why I'm like this. And now I could sell this to my friends, you know what I'm saying?
Here I have my heroin. Tomorrow I'll have some methadone and then I'm gonna be okay.
When we think of heroin users, we often imagine addicts shooting up in an alleyway with severe withdrawal symptoms, or famous musicians and artists. What we don't think of is your average working man or woman who manages to hold down a 9-to-5 job. Believe it or not, these people exist, and they call themselves functioning heroin users.
Because I'm in employment at reasonable wages, I can afford to live the sorts of lifestyle as the next man that I use on top.
There are lots of professionals who either might use heroin occasionally. I also know people who hold reasonably senior jobs who have opiate dependence.
Obviously they're scared of admitting to it because generally what they're doing is illegal.
You can be working for 24 hours without getting exhausted. Unfortunately, people tend to abuse it.
To me, heroin has always been a bad time drug, leading to a life of depression and addiction.
When you stop it, all this pain.
Leading to a life of depression and addiction.
When you stop it, all this pain you didn't deal with comes like a rush.
But is there more to a life on heroin than what we've been told? Heroin is made from the resin of the opium poppy. It can be injected, smoked, and sniffed. Each method comes with its own level of risks. Injecting has intense highs, but increases your risk of a fatal overdose and contracting hepatitis and HIV. Smoking heroin increases and contracting hepatitis and HIV. Smoking heroin increases your chances of pneumonia, chronic respiratory depression, and lung cancer. Even though snorting heroin is less stigmatized, the heroin particles cause chronic congestion and can, in some cases, corrode the back of the throat and nasal septum. In the UK, possession of heroin is illegal and can carry sentences of up to 7 years in jail.
We're in an undisclosed location and I'm about to meet a functioning heroin user who works as a project manager in the finance industry.
Please have a seat, I'm just making a quick phone call. Okay, yeah, see when you get here. Many thanks, goodbye. Right, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Very well.
A dealer who you're on the phone to?
It was, yes.
So how long have you been using heroin for?
About 30 years. on and off.
What was it like when you tried heroin for the first time?
Oh wow. It was the sensation of being stuck just this beautiful waterfall. Felt safe, secure, wrapped up. Was really gone. I was very definitely a regular user. So as soon as I went into employment, then that came along with me. Here it is. Like, excuse me, I need to go and see.
So he's gone to meet his regular dealer and pick up some heroin that he's going to smoke.
Okay. So this is an eighth of Afghanistan's finest.
Do you always smoke it?
Yes.
Never inject?
I have injected on 2 occasions. Neither occasion was particularly successful.
What happened when you did inject?
The first time I overdosed and the friend who I was with breathed me back. The second occasion, my habit had massively spiraled out of control and I decided to finish everything. And I tried slamming needles into anywhere I could see a vein. Came to the following morning, didn't even manage to do that right.
How are you feeling at the moment?
In all honesty, no different from a couple of minutes back.
So how many times do you have to take it a day?
Probably about a fifth of a gram in the morning, the same at lunchtime, and the same in the evening, and I would be absolutely right as rain.
Would you describe yourself as functioning?
For the most part, yes. I pay my rent. I get to work, I come home from work.
And what do you think life would be like if you weren't using?
Dull. No, I think I would be able to maintain relationships better. I don't have a partner. I don't have children. Because what sort of father would I be? Could I?
It feels really sad to me that you've almost chosen heroin over love.
There's no choice. But that's the sacrifice.
Well, he was saying that he hasn't been able to have a relationship. I mean, the whole thing's quite bleak, to be honest. Yes, although he can pay his bills, he can afford the heroin, is he really that happy? I don't think so. So it depends how you define functioning. Hi, nice to meet you.
David Nutt is a prolific researcher on the subject of functioning heroin users.
What is a functioning heroin user to you?
Well, someone that uses heroin and stays alive, and beyond that is able to hold down a job and carry on a relationship and run a family, etc.
So do you think there's a bit of a class issue with heroin in terms of the rich people can afford it, they can sustain their habit? People that can't afford it get the withdrawal symptoms?
That is true for all drugs, yes.
Yeah.
Not just heroin. Yeah, the rich generally do better. But of course, you're still buying it on the black markets because prescribing is illegal. It's about 1 in 20 heroin users die from heroin.
That's high.
When you're buying heroin on the street, it's cut. If you're used to taking 2% heroin and then one day you stumble across 20% heroin, the dose you give is almost certainly 10 times what you should be taking, so you die. Now, the way you mitigate that risk is to have prescribed ampules, so you die. The dose you give is almost, when you're buying heroin on the street, it's cut. If you're used to taking 2% heroin and then one day you stumble across 20% heroin, the dose you give is almost certainly 10 times what you should be taking, so you die. Now, the way you mitigate that risk is to have prescribed ampules, so you only ever get the right stuff. But that's very difficult to arrange in a society where it's illegal. We force people to go to the black market and create other people's addictions to maintain their habits.
Is it possible to take heroin and not be addicted to it?
Well, yes, the majority of people who use heroin don't get addicted. It's not the most addictive. The most addictive drug is tobacco. If you look at the proportion of people who end up struggling to stop, cigarettes is about 45% get addicted. Heroin is about 30%. They want you to believe that heroin is bad, and if you use it once, you'll get addicted. And that's part of the misinformation that's been paraded around drugs and drug harms for decades.
Just say no.
The vilification of heroin was to justify the vilification of black people. It's intrinsically a racist policy.
Professor David Nutt made me realise that the stigma of heroin is deep-rooted in issues of racism, classism and scaremongering by the government and the authorities. What we do need to note, though, is that heroin is still very dangerous, and although some people can be functioning addicts, a lot of the time it is like walking a tightrope.
Nowadays, society is beginning to understand the benefits of harm reduction as opposed to criminalisation. I'm in Bath and I'm on my way to visit a harm reduction worker who has recently quit heroin after 30 years of being a functioning user.
Hi Matt, nice to meet you. I'm Tyr. How are you?
Now, Matt Southwell provides clean needles and advice to help people overcome their addiction.
So who are the sorts of people that you're helping with your harm reduction services?
They're often people who've been through care systems, people who've had lots of engagement with the criminal justice system, and people who have other issues like mental health issues, other challenges in their life. It's difficult because it's such a stigmatised community to identify. However, there are lots of professionals who either might use heroin occasionally, they might dabble with it. I also know people who hold reasonably senior jobs who have opiate dependence.
I think that's quite shocking to me because no one really thinks about middle class people taking heroin.
There's always been a group of people who use opioids who get into real problems with them, and there's a lot of other people who manage to use them and help them either live lives without too much pain, or drive themselves, or be more functional or hard-working. Those are also stories of heroin.
Matt used heroin for over 30 years and even held a senior position in the NHS, but was let go when he spoke publicly about his heroin use.
Most people I work with know that I'm a drug user because I'm a drug user activist. It's been easier for me to be in control because of the very demographic and economic position that I hold. I'm someone who's got a job, I've got a house, I'm a nice middle class person. The challenge is because of the discrimination against people who use heroin, actually seeking help in itself is quite hard work.
How do you think that decriminalisation of drugs would help users?
Decriminalisation is the beginning of a journey. It's basically saying, look, the war on drugs has failed. Let's declare a peace. Let's remember we've only had prohibition of drugs for 50 years. It's been an absolute catastrophe, but now the global community needs to sit down and say, what next?
Matt, very impressive guy. I mean, he's accomplished a lot. He's well travelled because of his job. He seems very intelligent. He's middle class, he has a family, roof over his head, nice house, all whilst sustaining a heroin habit. Matt is the person who I wasn't expecting to see, but I guess that's what he was saying. It's that we need to change our perceptions of heroin because that's actually what is partly causing the problem.
But what happens to those who have the means and motivation to use heroin for the rest of their lives?
I'm in Greece, in Mykonos, and I'm about to go to a barbecue and meet a lady who calls herself a functioning heroin user. She's invited her friends over for a soiree and a barbecue and a couple of lines of heroin.
Thank you for being here again and again.
Thank you for having us.
Monica, I'm so glad.
Nice to meet you.
Let's go one way and then the other way.
Daphne is originally from Athens, but has set up home here with her husband, who also partakes in their shared interest.
This is my husband's paintings. He always put a line of heroin or a little grass or something.
Oh my gosh.
Because that was my life.
For how many years?
Oh, so many.
Yeah.
I started when I was 17. It's more than 40.
She's had a successful career as an actress, drug activist, and has also published a number of poetry books.
Are they inspired by heroin or...
A drug activist. Damn.
Any of your poems about heroin?
Yes, all of them. I have one about a drug dealer.
Okay.
A sonnet about a drug dealer. And here I have my heroin, and I do this. I won't offer you.
Oh, you just did it?
Yeah, I just did it.
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, when I say it, I cannot take.
You just sniffed it. Why would you sniff it as opposed to inject it?
First of all, because when I started, I was 17 and I've ruined my veins.
Mm-hmm.
Second, because heroin now is very dirty. It's not what it was, so I wouldn't trust putting it straight to my vein.
So how do you feel after you do a line like that of heroin?
You become kinder, sweeter, more sentimental, which, I don't know, I think I need it.
So the kindness and the sweetness, is it sort of like MDMA, you know, when you get very lovey?
Exactly.
Okay, it's like that feeling, euphoric,
100
warm.
more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the same euphoria, but 100 more. It's very warm. You're never cold. Even if it's cold, you feel warm.
Okay.
It's lovely.
But what would your advice be to people who wanted to take heroin?
To be very, very careful. Very, very careful. It takes a long time to get addicted, but that does not mean that you don't.
Right.
And addiction is a full-time job.
Yeah. Because there are people that obviously take it and their life just completely spirals. So it's a hit and miss thing.
Yeah, but it's not the drug only. It's that their life was at this stage anyway. Otherwise, you don't get it. You don't have the time or the urge.
Do you think you'll ever stop?
No, there's no reason for me to stop.
At this point in time, you don't want to stop?
I take recreationally maybe once every 3 months or once a month. It depends how it happens, but it's only 3 days. I don't go to buy more.
Yeah.
If I have an appointment, I keep it. So why stop it?
A lot of people wouldn't think that you could take heroin recreationally. So
yeah, it's not a drug.
Not the done thing.
Well, we used to go and dance and enjoy ourselves. Yeah, sure. Let me bring. Sorry, guys.
Daphne's casual heroin snorting didn't seem to be rendering her barely conscious or stopping her in any way from enjoying her party. And her friends at the barbecue seemed completely unfazed by her sneaking off to do heroin all afternoon.
For how many years have you all been friends for?
More than 3 decades. But my friends have nothing to do with drugs. That's it. Do you want some? Don't take it all because it's my last one.
Knowing Daphne and the fact that she uses, has that ever changed your opinions on the drug heroin, would you say?
Not at all. Daphne is Daphne, that's all. That's what we have.
What everybody does with his body is his matter.
My friends don't care if I've taken drugs or if I'm an activist even. They respect and like that I do fight for the rights of people, for the human right of people to do what they want with their bodies.
She is fighting big.
When I took the most I ever had, I was awake for a whole week.
I gave myself an injection, and as soon as I pulled the syringe, my body was already thrilled.
Sorry.
Nein, alles gut. Danke fürs Sagen. Wir machen mal eine kurze Pause, oder? Das ist vielleicht besser. Dann kannst du kurz was trinken. Und wenn es dir zu viel wird,
Yeah, everything's fine.
sag auf jeden Fall Bescheid.
Everything's alright.
I was 14 when meth came into the picture.
I just know that she started at 13, so really, really early.
Crystal meth is one of the world's most dangerous drugs. It's cheap to produce, extremely addictive, and has serious health consequences. Few other drugs have such a reputation for ruining lives. Historically, meth use in Europe has been relatively low compared to the US and Asia. European meth used to be concentrated in Czechia, where usage is still highest in Europe. But in recent years, consumption across Europe has risen. Some areas, such as Eastern Germany, are particularly affected. 5 of Europe's 15 highest meth use cities are located there.
Ich vermute, es ist wie generell im Osten von Deutschland einfach so die meistverbreitetste, härteste Droge.
How did this happen? Why here in particular? And who is profiting from all of this? We traveled to Eastern Germany and spoke with experts and former users. These conversations were originally conducted in German. For this video, we have provided dubbing and subtitles. At the same time, we try to understand where this drug comes from, what other areas of Europe are experiencing an increase, and what insidious global structures are behind the crystal meth trade. It's a cold New Year's Eve in a town in Saxony. Dominic comes from a stable family. At this point, he's 14 years old. He's out celebrating with friends. They decide to buy weed from an acquaintance for €80, but the dealer doesn't have any left. Instead, he offers them a choice. They can keep their 80 euros or use it to try something else. Crystal meth.
We tried the crystal without thinking about it. I thought it was funny and just took it for fun.
It won't be the last time.
We did it again the next weekend, and then regularly, every other weekend, and then daily. We started out snorting it, but it really burns your nose, and at first that was still manageable, but after a while it got so painful that we had to find other ways to get our fix, so we smoked it, we drank it, parachuted it.
Parachuting a drug involves wrapping it in thin paper and swallowing it. Over time, the drug's effects get weaker and weaker. Dominic is developing a tolerance.
After a while, the effect wasn't the same. My body was too used to it. The only thing left was injecting it to get the most out of the drug. It's almost the way to get the most bang for your buck.
Intravenous use involves dissolving the meth in water and injecting it with a needle straight into the veins. At this point, Dominic is 15 years old.
I gave myself an injection, and as soon as I pulled up the syringe, my body was already thrilled. As soon as I felt it course through my veins, my mind went. You know, you jump up, you're wide awake, you're immediately on the go, you're outgoing, you're chatty. This feeling was just, you just feel great and active and like you could move mountains.
Dominic tells us this first injection was the best high of his life.
Thanks to the drug, I didn't feel alone. And with these people, I never felt excluded. I was never alone.
It's 1938. The pharmaceutical company Temmler introduces the drug Pervitin to the German market, available without a prescription. It contains a novel substance, methamphetamine, the active ingredient of crystal meth. Pervitin is marketed as a stimulant, a wake-up pill. It quickly becomes a bestseller in Germany.
Was möchten Sie in den Kaffee? Milchzucker?
Nur 2 Pervitin, das wird heute ein anstrengender Tag.
A candy company even launches chocolates that contain Pervitin. They're said to help with so-called housewife depression. 3 to 9 chocolates a day are said to do the trick. 9 chocolates contain about the same amount of methamphetamine as is needed for an average meth high. It's not long until the Nazis start using Pervitin. By the 1939 invasion of Poland, they'd already used it millions of times. It's a miracle drug for the Blitzkrieg. Fear, hunger, fatigue all fade away on meth. Soldiers are more aggressive in combat. But soon, the drug's side effects become impossible to ignore.
Auf Pervitin gingen deutsche Soldaten über ihre Grenzen, bis sie einfach zusammenbrachen. Die Wirkung reichte nicht mehr aus und sie erfroren im Schlaf.
Sie verloren ihren Instinkt für Gefahr, vor allem auch durch Unterkühlung.
In 1941, Pervitin becomes prescription only. Still, it remains widely accessible. After the Second World War, doctors in both East and West Germany continue to prescribe it as a stimulant and pick-me-up. Athletes use it for performance enhancement. In the 1970s, the UN classifies methamphetamine as a Schedule II drug, which outlaws its unauthorized production and sale. Its usage declines throughout Europe. In Germany, Pervitin remains on the market until 1988, when medical use of meth becomes illegal. Nowadays, the street name for illegally cooked meth is often still Pervitin. Soon, a black market emerges. Small meth labs start producing crystal meth themselves, mostly in the US and Eastern Europe. And by the 1990s, illegally cooked meth finds its way from Eastern Europe to the rest of the continent. Every addiction has an origin story. Ashley's starts at age 20.
I was having some financial difficulties at the time, and I have a daughter. I had her father take care of her until I could sort out my money problems, but I haven't gotten her back since. That was a turning point for me, when I said to myself, I need to get on a different track.
Ashley also wishes to remain anonymous, so we've changed her name. She first comes into contact with meth through her sister.
My sister's been using it basically her whole life, and at one point she took me along with her. She started at about 13, so really, really early. At first, it wasn't that much. I'd say I did a line every couple of days, maybe every other day.
And it works. Well, sort of. Meth distracts her. takes her mind off things.
For one thing, it keeps you wide awake. One time I was taking it and I didn't sleep for a whole week. And it still made me feel even more energetic. It was mostly that I just didn't feel anything anymore. I didn't care about anything. And after a point, it was really often. I was definitely using at least a gram a day. By then, I honestly didn't care anymore.
Meth begins to take up more and more space in Dominic's life.
Everyone only cared about the drug. That's how it went. You're focused, you're inventive. It's insane. Staying up night after night, doing this and that, and it just keeps going on and on and on. I spent everything I had on it, poured all my money into using, sometimes several hundred euros in a day.
In my case, I had a good relationship with my dealer. I only paid 25 euros a gram, which just made me use even more.
As Dominic's meth use increases, he needs new ways to get his fix.
At first I just bought it from a dealer, or somebody went to get it for me. By the time I was 16, that didn't work anymore. I was using way more than I could afford. Started driving to the Czech Republic to pick up there.
The exact production cost of a gram of meth is hard to pin down. But in Czechia, the hub of Europe's meth production, you can get it for as little as 10 to 20 euros. Czech authorities report that around 6.5 tons of crystal meth are produced in the country each year. In 2022 alone, police shut down more than 200 illegal meth labs. The country does not only lead in production, it also has some of the highest consumption rates in Europe. Producing meth requires both the right equipment and expertise in chemistry. In Czechia, a country with a strong pharmaceutical industry, you can easily find both. Every meth cook also needs ephedrine, the base ingredient used to make methamphetamine. In Czechia, ephedrine is tightly regulated because of the meth trade. But just across the border in Poland, ephedrine-based medications such as cold medicine can be bought in bulk over the counter. That's where many Czech meth cooks source their supply. Meth cooked in Czechia easily makes its way into Germany. Smuggling it across the border is a lucrative business, whether through big dealers or in countless small shipments.
Hier in Sachsen und in Ostbayern wird sehr viel über sogenannten Ameisenhandel importiert. Ameisenhandel heißt, dass sehr, sehr viele einzelne Personen in kleinen Mengen diese Droge über die Grenze bringen und die Polizei kaum eine Chance hat oder der Zoll, dem habhaft zu werden.
There I was taken along by older guys. We called them old junkies who were basically just there to do the driving. And of course there's the Czech dealers. You just go to any pickup spot and they'll be there. But I also drove right into the country and picked it up directly from the lab. We swallowed it, packed it into little parachutes, and smuggled it over the border in our bodies.
According to Czech police, in 2014, about 1/3 of Czech meth ended up in Germany. Recent analyses show that methamphetamine residues in the wastewater of East German cities are especially high. We asked Ashley and Dominic, how long does it take to get meth where they live?
I'd say maybe half an hour. I wouldn't say longer than that.
I'd say it doesn't even take 5 minutes. In Chemnitz, Zwickau, Dresden, Leipzig, the scene is well established there. You can just tell. You know exactly where to go.
According to Saxon government officials, meth use in the state isn't increasing, but it's plateaued at a very high level. To understand how underground markets work, many moving parts have to come together. The bigger story emerges through collaboration among research institutions, governments, journalists, and above all, the voices of those directly affected. We're grateful to the brave individuals who have shared their stories with us and for the sponsors who make our investigations possible. This video is brought to you by AnyDesk, for free at anydesk.com/fern. It's 2014. By now, Dominic is a legal adult. He's been using meth regularly for several years. No job, no university. He's no longer following conventional life paths. He's firmly in the grip of addiction. And it costs him several thousand euros per month. That level of consumption needs to be financed somehow.
In my circle, for sure. Through petty crime, individual offenses, group efforts, I got myself into a lot of trouble with the law.
The more meth he uses, the more crimes he commits.
I started out shoplifting, and let's just say I ended up in much bigger trouble. It just got worse and worse.
So bad, he wound up in prison.
Muss ich immer so um die Ecke gucken.
Ja, genau.
Durch die Blume.
This is Dr. Stefan Mühlig. He's a professor of clinical psychology, an addiction researcher, and works with meth users.
Ja, wie sich das anfühlt, das kann ich Ihnen jetzt nur beschreiben aus den Berichten meiner Patienten.
He explains to us why methamphetamine is so addictive.
Es ist so, dass vor allem bei dem allerersten Konsum hier ein erheblicher sogenannter Kick entsteht, also ein explosionsartiger Rauschzustand.
Methamphetamine floods the brain with dopamine, the chemical that regulates lust, motivation, and your brain's reward system. It's often nicknamed the feel-good hormone. On average, an orgasm triggers an 80% increase in dopamine release.
Im Vergleich dazu steigt die Dopaminausschüttung bei einem Kokainkonsum, wenn man ihn nasal betreibt, zum Beispiel um 200 bis 400%. Bei Crystal Meth aber um 1400%.
In other words, a single hit of meth can release 17 times more of the pleasure hormone than an orgasm.
Da kann man sich ungefähr die Dimension vorstellen, wie stark dieser Kick ist und wie unvergesslich ein solcher Zustand ist. Schon beim allerersten Konsum, dann sehnt die Person sich dann immer wieder nach diesem ursprünglichen Zustand zurück oder nach diesem sehr starken positiven Rauschzustand.
The first time someone tries meth is enough to lay the foundation for addiction. How quickly that risk turns into full-blown addiction depends on how the drug is consumed. In simple terms, the faster meth reaches the brain, the higher the risk of addiction. Swallowing it takes about 20 minutes for the effects to kick in. Smoking it takes only 5 to 7 seconds. The same goes for injection. Once the high wears off, what follows is a brutal crash.
Der Entzugszustand ist sozusagen das Spiegelbildliche dessen, was man im Rauschzustand erlebt. Also man ist langsam, schlapp, ausgepumpt, energielos, down, depressiv.
Dominic and Ashley each find their own way to endure withdrawal symptoms.
I slept for a week, only waking up a few times to drink something. What I remember is constantly breaking into sweats and having heart and circulation problems from not hydrating enough.
I can only say from my own experience that you just get very tired or you sleep a lot. During that time I was also severely underweight. Sometimes I didn't eat at all, only when I'd come down a bit.
Die körperliche Abhängigkeit, die ebenfalls entstehen kann, ist dann, dass der Körper sich an diese externe Zufuhr von der Droge gewöhnt und ohne gar nicht mehr funktionieren kann.
Withdrawal can feel so miserable that it seems only one thing can help: getting high again. A vicious cycle. Regular long-term use of methamphetamine can lead to serious health problems, including depression, heart attacks, and epilepsy.
Bei Crystal ist es eher so, dass es zu kognitiven Beeinträchtigungen auf Dauer kommt, also Konzentrations-, Aufmerksamkeitsproblemen, Gedächtnisproblemen. Vor allem die Aufmerksamkeitsspanne ist stark eingeschränkt im Dauergebrauch, also nach Dauergebrauch.
The body deteriorates, poor skin, severe weight loss, bad teeth. Over time, meth damages organs and causes brain damage.
Das ist auch noch ganz, ganz wichtig zu wissen. Diese Stimulantien, Methamphetamin, aber auch Amphetamin und Kokain können auf Dauer psychotisch machen. Und die Psychosen sind sozusagen die schlimmsten psychischen Störungen. Das sind die mit Wahn, Halluzinationen zu tun haben.
Here's a map of all the meth labs that were shut down in Europe between 2018 and 2020. It's clear here that Czechia is a major stronghold in Europe. In Germany, Bavaria and the East are most affected. But further west, you can see that the Netherlands, Belgium, Norway and Sweden are also established meth hotspots. Large amounts of crystal meth in the EU now come from the Netherlands or Mexico. It's believed that Mexican drug cartels drive a lot of this traffic, using their expertise to cook meth in Dutch and Belgian labs, while precursor chemicals are smuggled into Europe from China. By now, the drug is firmly entrenched throughout Europe, and it shows no signs of disappearing anytime soon. Traffickers exploit international trade routes, airplanes, cargo ships, trucks. If one route gets shut down, another opens up. Occasionally, authorities report successes against drug traffickers, but the larger battle is widely considered unwinnable. Between 2010 and 2020, the quantity of confiscated methamphetamine increased nearly sixfold in the EU. One researcher in the European Union Drugs Agency warns that currently there are indications of increased methamphetamine use all throughout Europe. Wastewater analysis confirms an increase of consumption in many European countries. Fast forward to 2023. Ashley's been using crystal meth for 2 years now. She's been homeless at times and has given up custody of her daughter. She's lost contact with family and former friends. Today, she's using meth again. But this time, something's different. She feels unwell and realizes she can't properly talk.
After using, I wasn't in control of myself. I struggled to speak. I knew what I wanted to say, but I couldn't get the words out. Instead, I just sat there, staring into nothing.
She calls an ambulance. Shortly after, she's admitted into a psychiatric hospital.
That, in and of itself, was a reason to quit. But then I found out I was pregnant, and that was the real reason.
Ja, alles gut. Wenn du eine Pause brauchst, ist auch gar kein Problem.
Sorry.
Nein, alles gut. Danke fürs Lange. Wir machen mal eine kurze Pause, oder? Das ist vielleicht besser. Dann kannst du kurz was trinken.
People struggling with addiction have various ways to find support. Often the first points of contact are community outreach volunteers or social workers. They help users with everyday struggles like finding a place to live. But just as importantly, they support young people in taking the difficult steps out of addiction. By 2021, Dominic reached a breaking point.
I noticed suicidal behavior in myself, deliberately giving myself overdoses. Other problems added to it as well. Physically, I could feel it. Either I kept going with the drugs and I would probably die soon, or I changed something, and I wanted to change.
He decides to start addiction therapy. Beating a crystal meth addiction usually means facing a long and difficult journey.
Die Idee, ja, hör doch einfach auf, greift da schlicht zu kurz und wird dem Problem nicht gerecht. Die betroffenen Personen würden ja gerne aufhören. Manche würden ihren rechten Arm dafür hergeben, von der Droge loszukommen, aber sie schaffen es nicht, weil die Sucht eben eine ungeheure Macht über sie hat.
The first step is withdrawal. It takes about 4 to 6 weeks for the body to overcome a physical dependence. Afterwards, therapy can begin. We travel to a rehab center close to the Czech border to understand how it all works. This is Uwe Wicher. He runs the clinic.
Wir sind eine Fachklinik zur Rehabilitation von Abhängigkeitserkrankungen und haben uns auf Menschen spezialisiert, die von illegalen Drogen oder Cannabis abhängig sind. Wenn jemand zu uns kommt und Therapie macht, ist die Regelbehandlungsdauer 6 Monate. Wer im Haus konsumiert oder Drogen ins Haus bringt, für den ist die Therapie von unserer Seite aus beendet.
Addiction therapy in Wichers clinic takes place.
Ist die Therapie von 6 Monate. Wer im Haus konsumiert oder Drogen ins Haus bringt, für den ist die Therapie von unserer Seite aus beendet.
Addiction therapy in Wichers clinic takes place in 3 successive phases: an orientation phase, an intensive phase, and a reintegration phase. After physical detox, the therapy focuses on building awareness of the patterns that led someone to use the drug. Patients work on strategies to cope with difficult emotions and triggers. At the same time, they are prepared for life after rehab. It's not only about getting clean, but also about staying clean. For starters, this means leaving your old life behind.
Um dort wirklich von der Droge wegzukommen, musst du dieses Umfeld verlassen. So, und die Frage, die man sich auch stellen muss, sind denn das wirklich Freunde, die man dort hat? Oder besteht die Freundschaft? Oder ist die überhaupt erst dadurch entstanden, dass man gemeinsam konsumiert, vielleicht auch gemeinsam kriminelle Machenschaften an den Tag legt?
It's also about developing a whole new perspective on life.
Solche Perspektiven, die Sinn geben, denn Sinn ist wichtig, um auch abstinent sein zu wollen.
And patients have to prepare for difficult phases ahead.
Also in jeder Lebenslage, wo es ihm nicht gut geht oder man sich auch langweilt, kommt ganz automatisch dieses Bedürfnis, jetzt möchte ich eigentlich wieder drauf sein. Diese Erinnerung ist dann im Suchtgedächtnis verspeichert.
Addiction memory can be treacherous. The danger of relapse lurks everywhere, even in places where you would least expect it. It's 2014. Dominic's been in prison for over a year and a half. You might think he's long gone through detox. Think again.
In fact, there are both officers and inmates who smuggle it in, either through visits or through the officers themselves, depending on what the officer earns from it. In my prison, it was basically the norm. You could almost say that there were more drugs inside the prison than outside.
In prisons across Europe, it's clear inmates are routinely getting high. Drugs are regularly found and seized by authorities and show up in urine tests. Supplying a closed-off prison population with drugs may present dealers with added logistical challenges, but the demand is high. Drugs sold in prisons sometimes fetch 4 times the profits than those sold on the outside. Beyond visitors and prison officers, Dominic also tells us about others you might not normally associate with crystal meth.
Another common way to get drugs is through the prison's priest. He brings in a lot of substances.
We were also not able to independently verify these claims. We reached out to Saxony's justice authorities but received no response. Dominic also tells us that even outside prison, some police officers will turn a blind eye to crystal meth.
I never once got reported for meth possession. They never filed charges. When I'd be sitting with my dealers, sometimes cops would come in to pick up their own stuff. And we'd know about raids ahead of time. We'd get the heads up a day or so before a raid. So we had time to stash stuff away.
We were also not able to independently verify these claims. Prison guards, priests, even police officers. Dominic's accounts, if true, show just how deeply methamphetamine has penetrated all layers of society. Methamphetamine has a certain reputation.
Da klebt so ein anderes Etikett dran. Ne? Da klebt eben dran, das ist die ostdeutsche Unterschichtsdroge.
But the more experts we spoke with, the more complexity we found. Meth is used not only by marginalized communities impacted by poverty, but Europeans from all walks of life.
Also wenn wir uns unsere Klienten und Patienten angucken, dann kommen die aus ganz unterschiedlichen gesellschaftlichen Gruppen und Verhältnissen.
According to Dr. Mühlig, some use meth for neuroenhancement. They find that meth can boost performance at university or on the job.
Wir haben hier auch durchaus Patienten aus höheren Statusgruppen wie Managern, Bankern, Investmentbankern, die ihre Quoten erfüllen müssen. Auch Wissenschaftler manchmal dabei, also wirklich auch Abgeordnete.
Ja, der Bauer wird oft genannt.
They have to do a lot of repetitive tasks, like sitting for hours on a tractor plowing the fields.
Da kann Crystal Meth natürlich helfen, Müdigkeit zu überwinden.
Da gehören Schichtarbeiter, LKW-Fahrer sicherlich auch dazu.
Man möchte gar nicht dran denken, dass da welche auf Crystal Meth unterwegs sind.
Then there's the classic party context where meth is used like ecstasy or cocaine. There's also a pretty sealed-off scene called chemsex. These are groups where people meet in closed circles for sex parties.
Das ist eine Droge, die mehr als andere Drogen das Lustempfinden steigert, also sehr stark sexualisiert, die Hemmschwelle senkt, das Lustempfinden steigert.
The strongly sexualizing effect of meth comes with a whole host of other problems, particularly for female users.
Was in Sachsen uns sehr große Kopfschmerzen bereitet hat, nämlich dass auch überproportional viele ungewollte Schwangerschaften dann entstehen.
It's not uncommon for female meth users to keep using while pregnant. This can lead to prenatal damage and neonatal impairments. The fetus can be severely harmed and born with limitations or sometimes serious disabilities. Of the 35,000 children born in Saxony in 2015, 160 to 180 were diagnosed with damage caused by the drug. And these are just the reported cases. The undiagnosed number may be even higher.
Und das ist natürlich nochmal ein ganz schlimmer Folgeeffekt sozusagen der Verbreitung von Crystal.
When Ashley finds out she's pregnant, it's a huge wake-up call. It changes everything.
For me, that was really the turning point. When I found out I was pregnant, I didn't want to keep going. I knew I would be harming my child, and that was the moment I said, it's now or never.
Ja, voll gut. Also er ist auch richtig stolz
Yeah, I am. My boyfriend supported me. He said I could go to therapy, and I would have done it, but ultimately I overcame my addiction without. The pregnancy gave me so much strength. I could handle all of it and take care of my daughter. That was easy for me in the end.
Ashley managed to quit meth without addiction therapy. She gave birth to a healthy baby, who she tells us is developing well. Both Dominic and Ashley have left meth behind and are leading lives free from the drug.
Und wenn man mit den Patienten redet, ja, dann sagen fast alle, hätte ich es bloß gelassen. Also niemand steht dazu oder würde im Rückblick sagen, ich finde es gut, diesen Preis zu zahlen, das war angemessen, sondern der Preis ist viel zu hoch für das bisschen Vergnügen, was man für eine relativ kurze Zeitspanne eigentlich hatte. Nur.
Keine Ahnung, würdest du jetzt, wo du das alles durchgemacht hast, würdest du nochmal anfangen mit Quiz?
Never again. Never, ever again.
Their stories show that the journey to recovery is absolutely worthwhile.
I believe anyone can quit, but of course you have to find the will to do it within yourself.
Also das Fazit ist, dass man vielleicht beharrlich sein muss, dass man mehrere Anläufe braucht, öfter, dass aber am Ende das jeder schaffen kann, auch wieder loszukommen. Mit professioneller Hilfe, mit Eigenmotivation. Aber irgendwann ist der Tag gekommen, wo man auch wieder ohne die Droge leben kann.
Anyone struggling with methamphetamine addiction can seek support from friends and family, from community outreach workers, or through local addiction counseling services. Links to online resources can be found in the description.
When I look back to the time I was using, my world was so gray. Since I stopped using, my world is full of color again. I enjoy life again. I can enjoy the small things, like when an old lady smiles at me. You can appreciate these things way more if you don't use.
Well, this is a really boring stream today, but yeah. Be more fun next time though.